Hey everybody, Miss T here. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm here to present to you our next unit that we're talking about, and that is rivers. We just finished up weathering and erosion, and rivers are one of the biggest causers or agents of weathering and erosion. So we kind of move into how water can, on a large scale, shape the surface of the earth. So some of these definitions that we have to go through are, we'll start with solution. This means minerals dissolved in water. So the water that comes out of our sink, the water that comes out of your showers, water fountains, water in the rivers, those are all solutions. When there's particles floating around in flowing water, that's usually called a suspended solid. So whenever there's water or solids floating around, there's suspension going on. And we have deltas. This is a fan-shaped deposit of silt and sand at the end of a river. An alluvial fan, when stream flows out of fast-moving mountain valleys, slows down and it leaves behind sediment. The river discharge is the volume of the water flowing into the river. Laminar flow describes a calm, slow river, and turbulent flow describes a fast, quick moving river. So, two things that you'll have to be able to identify is an alluvial fan and a delta. A delta is over here on the left, and the delta is just like a river that flows into a larger body of water. So we have our main river, and it kind of opens up and it leads into a larger body of water. There's particles of sand that get left behind, sand, silt, sediment, and they pile up and they leave behind these little islands. Um, an alluvial fan is similar, except it happens on a mountain. So you have water that's flowing downward and it cuts through the actual mountain. And then once it gets to the bottom, it starts to like slow down and it can't carry as much water. It can't carry as much sand, silt that would normally cut through the rock, and it gets left behind here. So usually an alluvial fan is at the bottom of a mountain, and a delta is at the end of a river close to an ocean or a large body of water. That's the main difference between these two. There's laminar and turbulent flow. So laminar flow of a river looks calm, cool, collective. It's pretty much what you would picture um, like in a lazy river where you're just floating along. And turbulent flow is crazy. It's like turbulence on an airplane is similar to turbulent flow because you're bouncing around a lot. The water's moving all over the place. And there's whitewater rapids. So turbulent is faster and more velocity, and laminar is slower. So we describe rivers based on the stage that they are, and the stage is represented by how far away from the source it is. So usually the source will be wherever there's extra water and it starts to flow down, usually at the top of a mountain. So the first stage is the youth stage, and this is closest to where it begins. It's got waterfalls, rapids, there's not that much water, but it's moving at the fastest speeds. And we see this steep V-shaped valley. So right here, this is a steep V-shaped valley. The water is all the way at the bottom of this little tiny valley. A mature stage is once it moves a little bit further away and it's flooded a few times. We know that it's flooded because it's got this floodplain starting to develop on the sides here. So the mature stage, we have a floodplain. We have a widening valley, so it's not as steep and it's kind of a little bit more gradual, and we have this flat area. The valley walls have actually eroded away because of these floods. So mature stage, you're starting to see a floodplain, a widening valley. There's a little bit more water here. And then we get to the old age stage. We now have the valley walls are completely eroded. You have a huge floodplain. We have meanders. The meanders are these curvy parts. And we have an oxbow lake. an oxbow lake is where one of these meanders grew, but the water was moving so slow that it stopped moving and it formed its own lake. It like kind of fell off the river and it formed its own little lake here. We see tributary streams. They're little streams that lead into the river and add more water, because here at the later stage, the old age stage, is where there's maximum discharge, the most amount of water. Usually, right after this old age stage, this will lead into a larger body of water, kind of like the Passaic River leads into the Meadowlands, which eventually turns into the ocean. So this is the old age stage. It's the furthest away from the source. And it's the slowest. It moves really slow. So if we take a look, the source is right here. And as we move further down, we get a little bit larger floodplain, some more meanders. And then as we move even further down and further away from the source, you have a huge floodplain. You have little tributaries, you have oxbow lakes, you have meanders. Some examples, the Grand Canyon. This is, if you were to guess which stage would you guess? I hope you guessed youth stage, because this is kind of leaving the youth stage of the river, but still in it. Here we have an older age stage. And just some more information here on the meanders. This is essentially what happens is these meanders come so far out and the water moves so slow that it gets cut off. And the river is now going this way, and it doesn't lead any more water into this really like slow moving part of the Oxbow Lake. All right, so we will go over the rest of that a little bit later on. Take a second, look over this stuff, answer the notes, and hopefully everybody's doing well, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.